Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's update on Tropical Storm Ian. So, Tropical Storm Ian, as of 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Sunday, September the 25th, has maximum sustained winds of 45 miles per hour, a minimum central pressure of 1,003 millibars, and is moving west-northwest at 12 miles per hour. And Ian has slightly weakened since this morning, which is very good news, especially for my friends in the Cayman Islands and even in western Cuba. So I'm going to be showing you guys the water vapor satellite imagery to explain why I believe that Ian is struggling to get its act together. So Ian has been fighting off a bit of dry air in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. As you can tell, there's a lot of darker colors, which represents drier air. Even in the system, there's a little bit some darker colors, and this has kind of slowed down the organization process of Ian a little bit. And the longer we can keep Ian a weak, disorganized system, the better. But unfortunately, at some point in the next 12 to 36 hours, Ian is going to take off and rapidly intensify, as perfect is experiencing an anticyclonic outflow, and the anticyclonic outflow is going to allow Ian to rapidly strengthen at some point as it moves in the northwestern Caribbean, eastern Gulf of Mexico. And let's hope that it takes as long of a time doing so as it can, because there is absolutely no wind shear stopping it whatsoever, and the sea surface temperatures are in the upper 80s, and ocean heat content is near historic levels. So uh, there's really nothing stopping Ian from organizing except for this dry air. So eventually it's going to take off in the northwestern Caribbean. Looking at the official hurricane cone for Tropical Storm Ian, Ian is still expected to become a hurricane by tomorrow afternoon around 2 p.m. It is expected to rapidly strengthen by Tuesday morning, and we have hurricane warnings now in effect for western Cuba, Grand Cayman. We have tropical storm warnings in effect for west central Cuba, and we have tropical storm watches in the eastern Cayman Islands, and now we have tropical storm watches in the Florida Keys, as Ian is expected to become a major hurricane Tuesday afternoon as it moves north of Cuba and maintain major hurricane status through Wednesday, and is expected to weaken back to a Category 2 or 1 hurricane as it approaches the Big Bend of Florida sometime Thursday afternoon or Thursday night between, I would say, between Dayton and Tampa. So looking at the intensity model guidance, unfortunately, almost all the models show Ian still rapidly intensifying in the next 24 hours to a Cat 1 hurricane, to the next 36 hours a Category 2 hurricane, and in the next 48 to 60 hours a Category 3 hurricane, with some members still taking it to a Category 4. So the intensity is still very concerning for Ian, and let's hope that it is delayed for as long as possible, so that way we can minimize the impacts from Ian. And it is expected the models, as it approaches landfall, weaken it back to a Category 2 or 1 hurricane. Looking at the model tracks for Ian, the spaghetti model tracks, is expected to move west of Grand Cayman in the next 24 hours, hit western Cuba in the next 48 hours, and then make a landfall between southeast Tampa through east of Dayton in the next 120 hours or 5 days. So the models have actually trended a little bit east again. So Tampa, if you live in Tampa, you really need to be making your hurricane preparations. Anywhere from Tampa to Panama City Beach, you need to be making hurricane preparations right now, as we could be dealing with a landfalling hurricane, even major hurricanes still, in the next 5 days. Looking at the the European model, Uh, the European model has a great handle on Ian, showing a very disorganized tropical storm as of this evening, but unfortunately, the European rapidly organizes Ian to a strong tropical storm by tomorrow afternoon and rapidly organizes it into a Category 2 hurricane as it makes landfall in Cuba on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, the European model explodes Ian into a Category 3 hurricane, moving over the Florida Keys. And European model makes a landfalling Category 3 hurricane in Tampa Bay Wednesday night and Thursday morning. And not only that, the European model skirts the coast with Ian throughout the day Thursday, and as Ian slowly weakens as it moves inland across Florida into South Georgia now. So I am afraid that Ian is going to be a major flood producer as well for Florida and areas of Georgia and even maybe Alabama and South Carolina. Looking at the GFS model, the GFS model is also showing a weak, disorganized system right now. But as we head into the next 12 hours, the GFS is really excited about organizing this very quickly just west of the Cayman Islands into a strong tropical storm by tomorrow afternoon. And by tomorrow evening, we have a Category 2 or 3 hurricane approaching Cuba in the GFS. And the GFS goes crazy as it moves into the Eastern Gulf, strengthening Ian to a Category 4 hurricane by early Wednesday morning. And then the GFS model, the GFS is slowing the system right off the Tampa coast by Wednesday afternoon, and Ian just hovers off the coast for Wednesday through Thursday and even into Friday. So now both major models are showing that Ian is going to slow and almost stall for a 24-hour period. And this is unfortunately going to cause a major flooding event, I do believe, across areas of Florida and the Southeast. So let's get to these rainfall totals because let's see just how much rain Florida and the Southeast could get from Ian. But first, let's take a look at the Cayman Islands. My friends in the Cayman Islands, you'll be seeing about 5 to 7 inches from Ian. Cuba, the central and western portion, is expected to see anywhere from 3 to 7 inches. And this is where we get a lot of flooding problems. The European model is putting anywhere from 4 to 10 inches with isolated locations wherever this thing stalls out, up to 15 to 20 inches now across areas of Florida. Georgia about 2 to 5 inches, same with South Carolina. So wherever this stalls out is going to be seeing at least a foot of rain probably from this. And looking at the GFS model for precipitation accumulation, the GFS model is putting about 2 to 4 inches of rain in the Cayman Islands, about 2 to 5 inches, with about 7 to 10 were just east of the just east of the center of Ian in far western Cuba, and the GFS is stalling the system just to the west of Tampa, and the GFS is putting as much as 20, 30 inches of rain wherever this stalls out. So wherever this stalls out, you're going to be dealing with a major flood event. Let's hope it stalls out over the eastern Gulf and the rain stays offshore. And if this scenario plays out, Florida would only be seeing about 3 to 7 inches on average, with about 2 to 4 inches across Georgia and the Carolinas. Now, why is the storm going to weaken? Why is it projected to weaken as it approaches Florida? It's like the Gulf of Mexico is bathwater. You would think it would be strengthening upon its landfall, but what's going to happen is we're going to have a massive trough dig down from the upper Great Lakes, and this is also going to be what slows down what's going to slow down Ian, and this big uh, trough is going to send in a massive amount of dry air into the system from the north, and is going to interfere with the system as it's making landfall. And we're also going to be seeing a huge increase in southwesterly wind shear as Ian approaches Florida. So this is why the Hurricane Center is thinking it's going to weaken. But I'm going to keep you guys updated closely on Ian as we get closer to landfall in Florida. But for the meantime, if you're in the Cayman Islands in Cuba, make sure you are preparing for a hurricane in the next 24 to 48 hours and really making hurricane preparations from Panama City Beach to Tampa and watching closely from Pensacola to Naples for Ian. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful evening, my friends.